It's time for a throwback to a bygone era. The SNES was full of excellent RPGs. Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy, the Heaven and Hell trilogy, Bahamut Lagoon, Link to the Past, and so many more. But one that I played as a teenager growing up in the emulation scene was Tecmo's Secret of the Stars, not to be confused with Super Mario RPG. Compared to a lot of RPGs on the system, Secret of the Stars doesn't seem to compare. It has a heavy Dragon Quest feel, from its visual style to the combat. I also never finished it at the time, although I can't tell you why. But recently, I finally got a physical copy of this relatively unknown game. So let's talk about it, since I was able to finally complete it from start to finish. In Secret of the Stars, you play as a group of kids that are out to save the world. Yeah, I know, it's pretty cliche. In a lot of the RPGs of this era, you played as a kid that makes you wonder about the quality of parenting. Imagine that conversation with your kid. "Hey son, where are you off to?" "Oh, you know, just going to go buy some weapons and armor and save the world from an evil overlord." "Okay, sounds good. Just be sure to be home before it gets dark out." In any case, you emerge from your bed, check out the local town, and quickly find out that you are inhabiting an island with a volcano in the middle, which you'll have to enter at some point because plot reasons. And as you'd expect, there's a mad scientist inside the volcano, complete with a futuristic lab that looks completely out of place in this fantasy world. This guy tells you that he is fulfilling the wishes of the vile Homnicrews, a being that you will hear about multiple times but won't actually see until the final battles of the game. The volcano explodes, and suddenly you are saved by another mysterious guy who flies you to a rundown place called Old Hill. You now set out to figure out who this Homnicrews guy is and how you can stop him. Of course, you're not alone. You'll be meeting up with 4 other kids, each with their own special abilities. Tina is a potent healer that also wields ice magic. Cody commands the power of air and is a hard hitter. Same goes for Leona, except she can summon lightning at will. And finally, you have Dan, who looks like a toddler and is pretty weak physically, but has some of the best healing abilities in the game, since he is the only one that can heal the party with one spell. His bomb spell can be pretty devastating as well. With these 5 children, you explore the world, defeat enemies, hurt Homnicrews' followers, and save the world. Interestingly enough, there are also adults that will help you along in their own way. See, the kids are called Aquatalians, which I believe may just be the way the game uses to tell you that they are special. But there is another heroic faction called the Castera. There are about a dozen of these characters that you can find, and they can be used as a second party. They can enter dungeons, open item chests, and battle enemies just like the Aquatalians. However, these guys, even though they are older and look more mature and experienced, seem to be weaker. Maybe it's because I didn't have a ton of use for them. Why use an optional second party when your main party will still need all the experience that they can get? It did come back to bite me though, as the final dungeon requires you to use both parties to clear the area. At least you don't need to use the Castera to fight any bosses though. Unless of course you want to, which may not be a terrible idea since you can mix and match the Castera's job classes to form a party of your liking. The battle system is pretty standard. If you've ever played any Dragon Quest game, you'll probably immediately understand it. Your enemies are laid out in front of you, and you give commands to each party member. Attack with your weapon, cast magic, defend, use an item, or run are your options. And you'll get used to the combat quickly, because the encounter rate in this game is astronomically high. It feels like every few steps you're encountering another set of orcs, trolls, or other villainous creatures. Most of the time, you'll just be smashing the confirm button, because matching in this game is very hit or miss. The healing spells are a necessity, mostly because your inventory is heavily limited to 32 items, which may seem like a lot, but when you stock up on the multitude of story-related items, you'll realize that you don't have nearly enough space for the healthy foods and the such. In addition, the attack and support spells are kinda lackluster. Sure, the offensive abilities will do great damage at the start of the game, when your weapons are kinda lame, but later on in the game, you'll find that spells all do the same amount of damage. Why cast a spell that does 40 to 50 damage when you can just use your melee attack to do the same, and save your MP for healing? Problem is, the same goes for your enemies. Late game enemies start casting more and more high level spells, causing much more damage to your party. You'll need to be casting heal multiple times after each battle just to ensure that you'll be ready for the next challenge. In addition, there are support spells, such as Fast that increases defense and speed, and Power, which improves your strength. But these abilities don't seem to do a hell of a lot. Sure, the game's text displays that their stats have increased, but I never noticed any difference in the numbers shown for the damage given and taken. Mirror is nice, sure, but one big fault with the game is that it doesn't explicitly tell you what each level of the spell does. You'll just have to experiment to find out that Mirror 2 reflects spells, but Mirror 3 affects the whole party, but doesn't reflect spells. Also, there's Cure A and Cure B, each with 3 levels to them. And each level removes a different affliction. With no manual, you pretty much need to consort the World Wide Web to find out that Cure A1 cures poison, Cure A2 removes illnesses, and Cure A3 unmutes you. I think the reason why Tecmo designed the game this way was to cram as much as possible into one box, so you didn't have to scroll through multiple menus to reach the spell you want to cast. Each character gets a maximum of 8 spells, so selecting the desired spell, then choosing the level, seemed to be the easiest way to accomplish this. Yet, I don't know, having a scrolling menu seemed to work fine for Final Fantasy VI, a game that has over 50 available spells. Having a lack of knowledge on what the spells do is just the tip of the iceberg. One of the biggest faults with Secret of the Stars is that the game as a whole was just way too cryptic to play without me needing to consult a guide from time to time. And let me just go on record and state that I hate having to use guides for RPGs. I feel like part of the fun is exploring the world, talking with villagers, and getting a sense of the lore and direction this way. Unfortunately, this isn't always possible in SOS. For one, there are some really horrible translations. Sure, later in the status screen the show XP needed to level up, and a misspelled chainmail are a bit laughable, but that's fine and easily overlooked. But when you talk to certain townspeople for tips on where you need to run to next, and they don't help, well, it lends to a lot of unnecessary backtracking. For example, would you have known that in order to find the gold nail, you need to go back to the builder's house to the west of Old Hill, and go behind a wall, then search this empty area? Or what about when you need to go through a hidden wall to find a guy who digs through stuff just to move to the next area? I mean, even at the very beginning of the game, you aren't told that you have to enter one of the mountains that just look like decorations. There's no obvious entrance to them. You literally just have to walk up to each one of them until it warps you into the dungeon. Granted, this was kind of a normal thing back in the NES days, but on the SNES, there was typically a slightly higher level of polish that was expected by this genre of games at that time. Fortunately, one thing that the game does do right in terms of combat is feature an auto battle. Before you even start giving out commands, you have the option to select this. As long as everyone in the party is in good health, your team will automatically attack with their weapons. As soon as someone hits critical HP levels, someone in your party, typically the person in the lead, will automatically cast a healing spell. I always stopped the auto battle before this could happen, so I don't know how efficient the game is at restoring your party. I will say though, that not once did my party cast any offensive or support spells, so keep that in mind. I should also mention that if any of your party does fall in battle, once it's concluded, provided that you succeeded, any defeated warriors will be restored to 1 health point. This is good because in Secret of the Stars, the life spell isn't a guaranteed success. In fact, I found it not to work more than it did, and it's not a cheap spell to cast. This can be infuriating, especially in boss battles, where you can be using the precious magic points to heal what's left of your party. Oh, and did I mention that you never seem to have enough HP either? As long as you have decent armor, you can survive most physical strikes. But again, once the magic is unleashed, it's a whole nother ballgame. When I'm at level 30 and only have 200 health, and enemies can unleash a devastating thunder spell that causes about 70 or 80 points of damage to my entire party, well, you can imagine that this is going to cause some problems. And yeah, bosses can really test you. The high encounter rate does help lend to less intentional grinding, but you may still have to do so, especially if you've been neglecting your Costera party. Most early game bosses won't give you too much trouble, but Honda Cruz's 4 minions will definitely give you a run for your money. Most hit hard, most cast high level spells that could wipe your party out in 2 turns if you're not careful, and they have large HP pools. You'll probably have Dan casting Regain 2 non-stop just to keep your party's health up. At least the only real penalty to death is being flung back to the last save point with half of your gold taken away, which isn't terrible. But slogging through each dungeon and hoping to maintain your MP as you fight back to the boss room can be a challenge in itself. MP replenishing items are very limited in nature, and honestly, best saved for the final battle. If you did want to try to use both Aquatalians and Castera evenly, at least each group has its own GP and item pool. Eventually, you can access a storage warehouse in Old Hill, your headquarters, to swap items between parties, but it'll be a while before that can happen. Although I did encounter a glitch with the Casteras that made them unusually rich. In Decatus, I paid 1,000 gold as a bribe to open up the front gate, and suddenly I found that I had 10 million gold on hand. Huh? Well, this meant that I never needed to worry about their funds running dry, but it's still a bit odd to encounter something like this. Speaking of Old Hill, this is one aspect of the game I really enjoyed. At the beginning of the game, when you first arrive, it's just a field and a shrine of sorts, but by progressing in the game and talking to more people, you'll be able to recruit villagers with specialized tasks that will help you out, such as someone running the aforementioned warehouse. A farmer will give you plums, which are healing items that can be replenished by talking to him again, provided that you don't have any remaining in your inventory. A nurse will sell you upgraded medications. An armorer will create some of the best armor in the game. This is stuff that you'll be looking out for, and you'll be returning to Old Hill multiple times. Oh, and you can also eventually name the town. I named it Narsh in honor of Final Fantasy VI, which, truthfully, I was kind of wishing I was playing instead. That's because Secret of the Stars is a bit too mundane. The story doesn't really exist far from find the other Aquatalians and defeat Homicrews. It's not till the last quarter or so of the game where you find out that the big bad villain was some dude's artificial son that had been created by science. Huh? What? This is dropped on you so suddenly that you probably won't even be ready for it, and then it's never mentioned again. But moving on from that, the visuals of the game are just kinda bland, looking only marginally better than a late NES game. Everything is tile-based, which is fine, but that means that the world looks pretty blocky in nature. Dungeons have few wall textures, and this includes the final dungeon, which is inside the volcano from the start of the game. You'd never know that this was the ultimate dungeon if it wasn't for the slightly different music they had been playing. The battle scenes look okay, and the enemy sprites are fine and all, but some of them are just goofy looking. As for the music, yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. Secret of the Stars has a bit of potential, with the multiple parties and the world building, but everything else just feels like it was blended together haphazardly. A boring looking world, combat in which you'll be rushing for the auto battle option, music that won't motivate you to continue, terrible translations that make navigation a bit confusing at times. It's a shame because I was expecting more from Tecmo. Although it's not to say there weren't elements that I enjoyed, such as seeing the large boss sprites, or being totally confused on why the kids had to cross-dress as dancers to get into a town of solely female inhabitants. But for the parts I did find surprisingly enjoyable, it just wasn't enough to really want to keep going, and I found myself bored playing it frequently, resulting in watching YouTube or Netflix as I played it. I did finish the game and slay it on the cruise, but the ending was equally subpar. I will admit, it's not an absolutely terrible game, and it is worthy to check out if you're an RPG nerd like me and want to play everything available in the golden era of 16-bit RPGs, but just don't expect another Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest. Final score? 3 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.